All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope everybody did well on the quiz. I'm sure you did. And so now we're going to start into the last portion of our lessons, lesson number 6. And we're going to talk about property types, the types of properties. And basically, in general terms, there's different classes, and they're referred to as A, B, C, or D. An A property would be a newer property. It could be a brand new property just built. Typically in A properties, they're the highest rents because they're the newest properties. And then as they get older, usually any 10, 20 years or 25 years, in general terms, they're considered B class properties. And a lot of it also, I may comment, depends on the condition of the property and not just the age, but the condition of the property. But as properties get older, then they become C properties. And in the C properties, what we typically find in our tenant demographic, that is just good working class tenants that are in this property, as opposed to the A, where you're going to get a lot of the young executives. The rents are more expensive. There's a lot more amenities in an A-class apartment. You're going to find a little bit higher cost in terms of all the amenities, so you have higher rents. And then as the apartment gets older, you get somewhere between the young professional, people that just can't quite afford a brand new apartment or a new apartment, but they can afford a nice apartment in terms of the condition and of the age, something a little less expensive in rent, and that's where they'll work into the B property. And then, of course, in the C, as I mentioned earlier, get your good working class property. And then the D property are usually much older properties. They're properties that need a lot of work. Many times we'll see D assets in downtown major cities. Sometimes, they're very old. And they all have advantages and disadvantages. In the A property, when you first buy an A property, you're not going to have a whole lot of cash flow, and you're going to pay quite a bit of money for an A property. We're looking to make money and to produce income for ourselves, and more importantly also for our investors. In a B property, it actually gives you both cash flow, and also you have a chance to build some value, because as the property is getting older, there's some things that you can do to improve it in order to get higher rents, whereas you're in the A property, everything's new. So it's really hard and you're at the top of the market for your rent, so there's not a whole lot of movement. So if you're going to buy an A property, typically you're going to want to hold those for a long period of time so that you can grow the equity and grow the rent, and then down the road, 10 years, 12 years, you can make improvements on the property, and then that's how people make a lot of money buying A properties and holding them for a long period of time. In the B properties, you have an opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, to build some equity, and you'll have good cash flow. And of course, the C and the good working class, you're going to have more cash flow and a little bit less ability to raise the actual value, but sometimes depending on the condition of the property and where it's located, there's tremendous opportunity looking at good old C, good working class neighborhoods, which is the type of property that I like. I like the B or the C type property. When you get to the D properties, there's not much you can do in value added, but in cash flow, they produce a lot of cash in a D property. The one thing that I will mention, as opposed to an A property, a D property is a lot more management intensive, because there's a lot that goes on a D property and dealing with the tenant. So they're all great classes, all good opportunities. They just value out differently. Some you get a little bit of value, some you get a lot. It just depends on the condition, where it's located, and of course the age. In a trophy property is probably the best property, the newest property in the market. It's a term that's used It's typically, obviously, an A asset, but it's the very best, probably the newest property that's in the area. You'll see a lot of REITs, real estate investment trusts, and big companies. You know, they buy these. They call them trophy assets. You know, it's like something to be proud of. That you put on your bookcase. You know, to show your trophy, so to speak. Something really nice, and they call those trophy assets. Your core properties are going to be, you know, essentially, you know, your good, you know, bread and butter properties. You know, they're going to be properties that, you know, out in the market, they're relatively, you know, good condition. They have a nice equity play to them, and a core plus is just a little bit better. It's probably going to be your, you know, somewhere, you know, in your, between your A and your B asset. It's going to be a core plus, and it's going to be essentially, a lot of it's going to be what the majority of the market is, and it's usually a much newer property. As you look at properties that need work, you have what they call value add opportunities. And a value add are things that you can do to the property in order to add value and increase the income or decrease the expenses. Usually in most of the value add, you'll see those in the B or the C property. You don't see, it's rare in the A unless you add some amenities. Again, remember, you're at the top of the rental market when you're in an A property. But in a value add property, you have some room to grow and grow the equity. And then, of course, another category or classification are properties that need to be rehabbed. And I want to make a comment about rehabbing, because there's a fine line between rehab and rebuild. And you don't want to get into things where you have to get involved with the infrastructure. That's where you really want to draw the line. Infrastructure items will be if you have to go into all the walls and replace the electrical, because the wiring is aluminum, or there's some kind of a problem, or you have an older property and the pipes are rusting and under the ground, and you have to go in and do a complete reinstallation and redo all of the plumbing. Those things are very costly, and they're a part of your infrastructure, or including your foundation. If you have a building, like some places, particularly in Texas, where they have a certain type of ground and you know, and clay dirt, where the properties have a you know, chance to settle, and they settle pretty good sometimes. So I once had a property that was located in Georgia that we were evaluating, and in this particular property we had had done our due diligence, but we had noticed along some of the buildings there were these holes and these little round pipes about this big, and we asked the maintenance person, say, hey, what is all this for? And that's where we learned that there was a problem with the all of the main drainage underneath all of the buildings, because it was an old property, had a lot of beautiful old oak trees with Spanish moss hanging out of them, and over a period of time what was happening was that the roots of the tree were that were all underground were all migrating towards the pipes and strangling the pipes and breaking the pipes and causing a lot of problems. And so we saw that the plumbing bills were high, water bills were you know, higher than normal, and we finally learned from the maintenance person that they had this problem in the infrastructure. We called some plumbing companies that could actually fix and repair all these pipes underground, and we were quoted somewhere right around $1 million, 1.2, in order to make all of the repairs. So we went back to the seller and said, you know, we love your building, but we're going to need a credit of $1.5 million in order to cover any additional cost. And you know, here's the quotes that we have at 1.2, and this is something else we found, and we need to get all this straightened out, or you know, if you straighten it out and fix all this and make replace all this, then maybe we'll consider buying it. But it's such a big job, and when we get into those types of things, again, there's a difference between rehabbing and rebuild. So don't get into anything where the turning of the apartment is so great that you get into a situation like that. So items that can be rehabbed is It's easy to replace roofs and take care of the parking lots, you know, make cosmetic changes, but you don't want to get into infrastructure type items when you're doing your rehab. Okay, so the next thing that we were going to come up, we're going to, in our next module, we'll get ready, we're going to take a short break and we're going to come back and talk about value add and repositionings. We'll be right back.